Hi, everybody, and welcome to Good Vibes FC. I'm Sam Mewis, coming to you from Manchester, England. I am 3 for 3 on recording Good Vibes from my various satellite global offices. I am right now at the Manchester City Media Facility.
And hi, I am Becky Sauerbrunn, coming from Portland, Oregon, where I actually think it's pretty Manchester-y outside. It's very rainy, very cloudy. I hear Manchester is like basically the Pacific Northwest of England.
I think that's so accurate. I do love Manchester, but I also love Portland, so pretty similar, I guess, if you ask me. Together, Reba, we are the self-anointed book club of women's soccer, because isn't women's soccer just basically all the high school clubs that you participated in?
I mean, I didn't get to participate in a lot of high school clubs, but I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, it's pretty reflective of us. I didn't really do many clubs either. Soccer was my main club.
Yeah. I feel like I missed out on some fun times, though.
I know, for sure. Well, okay, Reba, so here I am in Manchester. I got to come and go to the Manchester Derby on Saturday. I actually played here for Man City in 2020 and 2021 during the pandemic, so it was really fun to come back and get to hit up all my favorite old spots. Rose Lavelle and I played here together. We lived in this neighborhood called Ancoats, so we hit up the good spots in Ancoats this weekend. Rudy's Pizza, Trove. I went to a really great dinner with Pat, my husband, who is a chef and wanted to try a Michelin star place here in Manchester.
Ooh, Michelin star.
Yeah, it was very fancy and very, very delicious. The restaurant's called Mana. And then, Reba, we went to the Manchester Derby on Saturday. The atmosphere was incredible. There were 40,000 people at the Etihad. Did you hear anything about that?
I have just heard that the crowds have been unreal this season, and it just warms my cold, dead little heart.
The crowd was amazing, and I actually never got to play at the Etihad. So going and seeing, I know.
You didn't?
Because I was here during the pandemic, so we were playing in the Academy Stadium. I never played in front of fans. So it was such an incredible turnaround from my experience here. City beat United 3-1. Jess Park, who was a really young player when I was here, scored 2 goals and got an assist on a record-breaking goal from Bunny Shaw. It was such an incredible game. I was so happy for City, so happy that we could be here. We went to the Chippy after the game, got a nice fish and chips, which was incredible. Do you like fish and chips, Reba?
No, I don't. I don't like fish and chips. Sadly, I like the chips part, not as much the fish part. If it was like chicken tendies and chips, I'd be like, I'm in.
Oh, I'm sure they have some chicken tendies at a Chippy somewhere around here. But it was honestly, it's been such an incredible weekend. I had a roast dinner last night, chicken, Yorkshire pudding, my favorite food in the whole world. And then today we spent the day at the facility. We watched training. We did some interviews for our interview podcast, Friendlies. And tomorrow I get to head over to London to visit Christy and Sam. I'm really excited about it.
Oh, wow. It sounds like a wonderful trip. I remember watching you play games when you were playing for City. And I don't know if you remember this, but I would text you occasionally and just be like, you're playing so well. You're going to be player of the season. Do you remember any of that?
Of course. I remember probably every single time you've ever texted me, Becky.
It just made me so proud that you went over there and you just stamped this is a U.S. international that can ball at any level on in any league. And so I was just really proud of you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for saying that. It's been really fun being back and kind of reliving the glory days. I loved my time here when I was playing, and I honestly love Manchester as a city. I feel like it gets kind of a bad rap for the weather, but it's an awesome, fun, hip, vibrant city, and I highly recommend it to anybody. But you are in the Manchester of the Pacific Northwest, Becky. You are in Portland. You've been there for a few weeks since Gold Cup ended. What's going on in your life?
Well, got back from the Gold Cup, so I was gone for a month, so pretty long time. And then Zola had to go to Germany for work. And so I'm like, this is prime time for me to bond with my cats. I've been gone from them for a really long time. I think they're holding a little bit of a grudge. I was like, this is great. I'm going to win over their affection. I was providing them gourmet feasts. I was always available for cuddle sessions, and they did not take me up on anything. It was I was shunned in my own house. I was just oozing please come and give me affection. I love you guys so much. And they just were having none of it. So I would say my off-field life has been a little sad.
So the cats are pissed at you.
So mad. And then Zola got back and it was the most favored human is back. And it was I felt like they were all traitors. Yeah. I was like, I rescued you. I saved your lives and you're treating me like this.
The one place Becky Sauerbrunn is not the most revered person in the room is in her own house.
My own house.
What's it been like transitioning back to Portland and to the Thorns for the last couple weeks since national team camp?
It's been a whirlwind. I mean, we got back and I think we had maybe 3 days before we had to travel to Kansas City to play their home opener and stadium opener. And then a week after, obviously, I played Gotham last night. And so it was really just getting back into the swing of things, getting onto the cadence, recovering from the Gold Cup. Like we were all, like the players that came back were all at different levels, depending on how many minutes they played. And so just trying to get everyone healthy and on the same page as quickly as possible. Because like a month of preseason, like preseason is long, but to miss a month, like you miss a lot of things.
Yeah, seriously. And you were with a totally different team with a totally different goal. So I imagine that transition coming back has been difficult. We are going to talk more about your Gotham game from last night. That's called the Good Vibes FC Derby, Portland versus Gotham. That was a very VAR-y, very VAR-y match, if you will. And speaking of VAR, the WSL, the Women's Super League, VAR isn't here. And it may have given Chelsea and Arsenal a serious boost in the run-in to the league title, which will be determined in a couple of weeks. Plus, the U.S. Women's National Team gets their Olympics draw, so we are going to break down what to expect from the group stage in France this summer. And we got an email from Christy Cook to answer a big question about how the new USL League will affect the NWSL. Back to the pitch, Becky's game last night. Portland 0, Gotham 1. Becky, what did the run-up to the season's home opener feel like? Portland is like a perennial contender of the league, always top of the table, but you guys came in second in last year's season. So does it feel like there's something to prove this year?
I don't know if prove is the right word. I think as long as I've been on Portland, you know, we won a Shield in 21. We won the championship in 22. Like we've been like a very successful club. So I don't think we have to prove anything to anyone else. I think if we have to prove anything, it's just like to ourselves, like, hey, like this is a very historically successful club. Like, let's keep that going. Let's keep pushing. And so I don't think it's prove, but I definitely think with all the buzz that's around all these new expansion teams and like San Diego and with Gotham winning last year, like you definitely want to put your stamp on the history of the NWSL. So maybe it's more along those lines.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Well, you guys are like notorious for having incredible fans as well. You had over 19,000 people in attendance, which is your largest home opener ever. It seems like that is a theme going around women's football in general, but especially in the NWSL this weekend. And so our alter ego game this week is going to be giving all of the fans of all these NWSL clubs their high school club. So I'm curious, Becky, you are a Thorn through and through. What are the Portland fans' high school club?
So I'm going to go band, but I'm going to get more specific and go percussion in band because I was in band. Yeah, I was in band. So come at me if you want to. I loved band.
What did you do in band?
I was a flautist. I played the flute.
I never knew that.
Yeah, since 5th grade. I played all through high school. Yeah. So whenever the percussion would come in, I was like, oh yeah, here it comes. Like, because they're just so awesome. They're such a fun collection of people because you have like the stoners and then you would have the people that are like, I am just here to rock. And then the people that are like, I'm really just doing this to put it on my college transcripts kind of thing.
Right.
So I think it's just such an awesome collection of people and they always show out and they always make whatever you're doing so much better.
Oh my God. I don't know if we could ever like top the explanation that you just gave for why Portland Thorns fans are like the drummers in the high school band. Like that was incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have a lot of experience with them. So I guess it makes sense. Well, unfortunately, we're going to get into the game a little bit. Can we give Gotham a high school club? What are the Gotham fans like?
You know, I think of Gotham going back to like the Sky Blue days. You know, they're playing at Rutgers. Like that club, an OG club, has really seen some stuff. So if I had to give them a club, I would almost want to make them like the Alumni Association because they're so loyal that like 5, 10, 15 years from now, you're going to get emails from them being like, hey, we're having this reunion. Like we would really love for you to come back.
Oh my gosh. All right. High praise from Becky Sauerbrunn for both fan sections, Portland's and Gotham's. We've got the band, the drummers. We've got the Alumni Association. One of the other major stories from this game, unlike these games this past weekend in the WSL in England, which we are going to get to, was the impact of VAR. Sophia Smith had 2 goals that she scored, called offside upon review, one in the second minute, and then an absolute laser show in the 62nd minute where she just ended up being barely offside. Talk to us a little bit about just Sophia in general. Obviously, her goal scoring ability is pretty incredible, but what is Soph like as a player and as a teammate?
Well, definitely don't call her Sophia. She doesn't like that. So call her Soph or Sophie. But she is...
Oh my God, I don't even think I knew that. Do I even know these people? She doesn't like being called Sophia?
She always corrects people when she hears Sophia. She's like, that is not my name. It is her name, but she just doesn't like to be called that. So Soph... Dang, Sam, you really don't know your friends and teammates?
Never knew you played the flute. Never knew Soph didn't like being called Sophia. Let's just keep keeping track of all these things that I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Soph is Soph. It's hard to explain Soph because I think she came on the scene a few years ago and people just did not know how to defend her. Like the things that she could do, like not a lot of players can do. Like she's very clearly a special, rare player. And then I think teams were like, okay, we need to keep her as far away from goal as possible. We need to like double team her. Don't let her turn. Don't let her like pick up pace or anything like that. And now I see Soph evolving her game where she's reading the pressure. She's able to physically ride challenges. She knows when to lay it off, when to spin it and get in behind. And then she still has those things that made her special when she first got on the scene, like her 1v1 abilities, her ability to drive and take space. It's like second to none. And so it's really fun for me to be able to see her adapting and evolving as these teams think they know how to defend her.
Totally. I know she always, for me, was one of the hardest players to get the ball off of because she's so skillful, but she's also so strong. Do you find you have difficulty when you have to defend her in training?
Oh, yeah. And I always want to go against her because of that, because it's like
the best practice.
Yeah, you're making me so much better. And so I really enjoy it because like it tests me and I get burned quite a bit. But like the one time I get to steal the ball off Soph, I'm like, that was a good day.
Yo, yeah, big time. So this is now the NWSL's second season with VAR. We're going to come back to these 2 non-goals that Sophia Smith scored this weekend. Do you feel like the new normal of having VAR is setting in and you guys are relying on it more, trusting it more? Is the whole process a little bit more seamless?
I think the process is getting more seamless. I do wish, though, that like when a ref gets called over to review something, if it's taking more than like a minute and a half, I don't think whatever they're looking at is very clear and obvious. And I think whatever call that you made on the field should just stand. Like I think when we're adding 5 minutes, 6 minutes to stoppage time because you're just reviewing every single angle and you still don't really have a clear answer, that's when it starts to like break up the momentum of the game.
And it's meant to be used for clear and obvious errors.
I mean, so I've heard.
Apparently. So when that happens, like I only played with VAR really in the 2019 World Cup, and it was like so new. When Sophia scores twice and then the goals get taken off the board, what's the team response? Is it a feeling of like, oh, we're just getting unlucky and the ball isn't bouncing our way, or is it like a devastating moment?
It's not devastating because you pretty much know if a ref gets called over, they're overturning whatever call they made on the field. So when that happened last night during the game, I was like, okay, they're calling this back for whatever reason. I don't know if it was offsides or a foul or what. But we kind of just got together and we're like, no matter what, like, let's keep pushing. Like we felt like we were playing really well at that moment in the game. Like it'll come again. So it's not devastating. I will say how you mentioned 2019 VAR, that I think was like monster growing pains. Like I remember players clearing balls and then an attacker pressing that player. If they like ran into the person's foot, it would be a red card. And I was like, what are we doing with this VAR? Like that was wild. And so I think we've come like leaps and bounds from that time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, geez, I do feel for Soph, especially on that second goal. That was a laser. Like that's like a career defining shot that you remember forever. And to have that called back, my heart really, really hurt for her.
It was a beauty. And also, Sam, that could have been my assist. I mean, I literally just played it into space like blindly, and she had to do a lot with it. But maybe I would have been given the assist.
Becky, you laid her in there perfectly. You set her up for that goal. Unfortunately, it was called back. And then to top it all off, in the 72nd minute, Yasmin Ryan of Gotham cuts the ball back to Esther Gonzalez to go up 1-0. They closed it out. Portland loses 1-0. And now you guys are 0-2. Each game were just a 1-goal loss. How do you motivate these close calls? How do you keep the team positive when you start the season a little bit tough as captain? Like, what do you say?
Yeah, I think the ball sometimes bounces your way and sometimes it doesn't. So I think you have to look about progress within the team from game 1 to game 2. And I think from our 5-4 loss to the 1-0 loss against Gotham, like 2 very different games. And I think we were really proud of our response from the disappointment of that Kansas City game, and then how we showed up in that Gotham game. Because I really do feel we had the run of play for most of that match, and I think we were really dangerous. I mean, obviously, we were just talking about 2 goals called back. I think Sinky had a great chance near the end of the game. So we had chances. And so I think when you have these kind of like close matches where you're on the wrong side of it, it's really about like, but are we getting better? And I think we definitely are.
In more kind of fun news, Crystal Dunn was a Thorn until she was a free agent this offseason. She was back at Providence Park, this time on Gotham. Was it fun to see her? Like, what's that like squaring off against a former teammate? Is it like friendly rivalry, or are you kind of like, you're the enemy now?
Ooh, that's a tough. I mean, I love Chris. And so I've been playing against her for so long now, back when she was on the Spirit and then with Courage with you. So like, I'm used to playing against her. I loved having her as a Thorn, I will say. So sad to see her go. But I mean, Sam, you know, like when you go against a player that you know really well, especially one that you play with on like the US team, there's a little added competition and rivalry there. I think you go in a little bit harder and like you're like making a point. You just know each other so well, and you just like, you're not going to let this person get the better of you.
No, definitely not. I remember like so vividly playing against Lindsay Horan when she was on the Thorns and I was on North Carolina, and we would like joke around and like giggle at midfield, but when there was a 50-50 ball, like I would have rather died than lost it. And like naturally I probably lost about half of them, and I could probably point them all out because it just gets you a little bit more when it's like your friend and your national team teammate. The other thing I wanted to mention from your game was Midge Purce unfortunately sustained what looked like a knee injury in stoppage time at the end of the first half. Just another injury on a list of injuries for Gotham. So unfortunate early this season, including Rose Lavelle and our very own Lynn Williams. Head coach of Gotham, Juan Carlos Amoro, said after the match, and I'm quoting, "We are paying the consequences of a tournament that shouldn't have happened. Another player playing in the Gold Cup, and 10 days later, she's injured." I wanted to see what you made of this, Becky.
Well, I do think that the Gold Cup fell at a really inopportune time for us. Like, we were coming off a really long break from the end of the NWSL season, and also international duty was done. So you have these players that are taking 6 to 8 weeks off, and all of a sudden you're expecting them to come into a highly competitive tournament, play potentially 6 matches with a cadence that's really similar to the Olympics, where you're playing like every 3rd or 4th day. And so I think a lot of players going into that tournament probably really weren't cleared for full 90 minutes, but you just have to. You have to play. And, you know, you go with a 23-person roster, and so, you know, there's rotations and things like that. But a lot of players got a lot of minutes and potentially physically just weren't ready for that type of like rigor.
Yeah, so then they come back to their NWSL clubs and maybe they have a little bit of a knock, or their bodies are just more tired, more loaded, more a little bit worn down. I think my question, I feel like, is I didn't really think about whose responsibility it was to either have or not have Gold Cup until I heard that Juan Carlos asked this question. So now I'm kind of wondering if managing that load, does that fall on CONCACAF for scheduling the tournament, or did FIFA schedule the tournament? And his anger, which is understandable, he's missing now 3 of his best players, who that is directed at. Is it a scheduling issue? So I was just a little bit curious about that, and I think what you said makes total sense. It also makes me think about this new Liga X NWSL tournament that's coming up this summer during the Olympics break, especially considering kind of like my injury history. I'm curious whose responsibility it is to manage player loads throughout a season if there's this extra tournament being added on. At what point is it like the player's responsibility to speak up? Are the players' associations involved? And I have some opinions as well, but I would love to hear what you think first about specifically this tournament during the Olympics break.
Yeah, I think the responsibility falls on a lot of parties. And I think, when you're on international duty and you're with your national teams, like you should be having a lead in the medical department and the sport performance department. And then those parties should be communicating and sending all the GPS data and all that loading information to your club so that they're aware of the status of the player. And so I think that communication has to be like really seamless. And I also think a lot of onus goes on the player for advocating for themselves. Like if you picked up a knock and you don't feel like you can do this training or that you shouldn't be playing in this game, like I know it's so difficult. And I think every player has struggles with this, which Sam, I think I would love to hear from you about it.
Yeah.
It's really hard to be like, I think I need to sit this one out for like the longevity of my body and my health. I need to sit this out or this week out, and having the understanding and the grace to do that and to not feel like you're going to be penalized in some way. And so I do feel like the Gold Cup, it was the inaugural Gold Cup. Will it always be set during this, like, I guess what was January, February FIFA window? Like maybe that's something that they can talk about. Maybe it needs to go somewhere else. So I think there's just like a lot of learnings that can be taken from that. But I would love to know how you feel about where the responsibility lies with which parties.
Yeah, I think something you just said that's super interesting to me is like that communication between club and country. Like, how are you passing that information back and forth? And I don't want to always like insert what happened to me as like the way we should always be thinking about injuries, because I do think my case was pretty rare. But I think in retrospect, there was a lack of communication between club and country in my case where my load needed to be managed long term. A lot of that responsibility ultimately did fall on me, and I never felt like I could make those kinds of decisions and pull myself out in a way that would have made my knee cartilage last longer. I think that looked like a kind of weekly change in load. So I find it frustrating that the onus is partly on the players because I firsthand know how hard it is to manage that. I also find it frustrating when you hear stories about that communication and transition back and forth not going smoothly. Like it has to be somebody's job to make sure that loads are managed across a player going and traveling and playing for their country and then coming back, traveling, playing for their club. I think the last point that I'll make is just that I think this summer tournament in so many ways is a good thing. If there's going to be a long break for the Olympics, players should keep that load up and they should be playing in games and there should be a tournament. And I think that it's a positive thing in so many ways, but it is another opportunity to get more players a different amount of loading in that window, whether that's players who are playing a lot, a little bit of rest, players who aren't playing a lot, a little bit more load. And I think even that needs to be managed really carefully. So while we learn and go through kind of all of these new tournaments and changes, the expectation on the players' resources, the staff that's working directly with the players, that expectation is going up, and we need to see like a positive response from everybody as there are new tournaments and like changes in the game.
Oh, 100% agree. And I think we're just going to be seeing more and more games each year, and you need to see the resources like matching that trajectory. Absolutely. And I think that's something that I know I feel in the NWSL. I think with our national team, like we're doing really well there as far as resources, but just like we really need to invest in that, and you need to invest in it as soon as possible.
Totally agree. So elsewhere in the NWSL, it has been the glorious return of Chaos League. 3 largely unexpected wins from Kansas City, Chicago, and Utah colored the weekend. San Diego's home opener was spoiled by the Kansas City Current. The Current won 2-1 off of goals from Izzy Rodriguez and a Lola Bonta PK. I wanted to pause really quickly. Reba, who are these high school clubs for San Diego and Kansas City?
Oh, no.
San Diego.
Okay.
Surf Club.
Oh, I mean,
yeah.
I grew up in Missouri, so there's no chance that I even knew Surf Club was a thing. So
me neither. I think in California it's a thing, though.
I mean, good on them. I really feel like I missed out on that high school experience then.
Yeah, you were landlocked. You were not getting any kind of a surf club. What are the Kansas City fans? What is their high school club alter ego?
Oh, man. I mean, having played in Kansas City for 5 years, like they're some rock stars. They were so supportive. And like they were like down Like they were like willing to like do fisticuffs if need be. I almost want to say like, was there an after school club like with like machines? Like what was that when you would like make a wooden keychain to hold your keys?
Like wood shop?
Yeah, I think wood shop.
Or like wood shop club. All right, Kansas City Current fans, congratulations, you are wood shop club.
I will also just like to add on that. I hope that's not offensive. I was just trying to say like they were very resourceful with the little bit of investment we had with Kansas City at that time.
I think that's a compliment, Becky. I think that's a really nice thing to say. The team also resourceful. Like I said, goals from Izzy Rodriguez, a Olipop to PK. I think Kansas City looks really good attacking-wise. They look dangerous moving forward. Vanessa DiBernardo seems like she's in a really great system for her. I saw her play some incredible passes. Bia, the Brazilian, this is only her second game with the club. She's looking dangerous. And then Temwa Chawinga, the Malawi forward. This girl is so fast. It's like game-changing. How would you think about defending somebody like Chawinga, who has that like just incredible like game-changing speed on a counterattack?
Well, Sam, every time I step on the field, most of the forwards are faster than me. So
So it's all you think about.
let me talk to you about defending fast people. Basically, the keyword is buffer. So you're just providing a lot of buffer space. And so the faster the player, the more the buffer you're going to give them. And I will say that like you can stop the source, stop the ball like from being played in behind and not letting them pick up pace. But sometimes you're just going to be in these like one-on-one foot races. And really like with Chawinga, I'd probably have to give Chawinga like 15 yards of buffer space and just like try to usher them wide and away from my goal. But we played the Current for their home opener. She came in and literally one of the first plays, Lola Bonta just hit like a dime ball
I know.
behind our back line, and it just caused havoc. So clearly the Current know also how to use that speed well.
I know, already too. I was going to add, as a midfielder, when you're playing somebody faster than you, which I did all the time, I feel like you are usually in a tighter space, and my tactic was to physically like not let them get running. So like anything you can do, grab their arm, kind of shoulder them off the ball, like whatever I could do when I was close to them to not let it open up. That was my tactic. Overall, Kansas City comes away with the win. San Diego will be bummed to lose their home opener in front of 30,000 plus fans, although they did do that to Gotham the week before. So maybe it's just karma.
Or it's chaos. To me, it's like it's the NWSL. It's just chaos.
It's just chaos. The biggest surprise of the match, no Lola Bonta celebration after her PK goal. Local Kansas City reporter PJ Green reported Lola Bonta said current head coach Vlatko Andonovski told the team to keep it humble, get the win, and dip, which is why she didn't do a celebration. Do you think that Vlatko literally said get the win and dip?
You know, knowing Vlatko, I don't really hear that coming from him. I hear that for sure coming from Lo. I've known Lo for a really long time. I've played with her for a really long time. She actually calls me mom, and it makes me want to vomit all the time. But that's just a side note. But I feel like Vlatko's probably, as any new coach would want to do, like stamp a little bit onto the culture. And so if he was like, let's just like win and like get out of here, and that's kind of be like, we're going to set the tone that we're here for business and then we're going to go beat the next team, I wouldn't be surprised about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But get the win and dip does sound foreign coming out of Vlatko's mouth, although Vlatko 2-0 in the NWSL. Vlatko's back. Let's see how they do next week. Next up in the NWSL, we have our first place, Chicago Red Stars. Did you see this one coming, Becky?
I did not see that. That was not on my bingo card.
It's incredible, though. I do want to shout out Ji So-yeon's goal for the Reign. Pretty sick volley, and she becomes the first Korean player to score in the NWSL. And then we had Julia Bianchi, who's Brazilian, and Maxi Rahl, who's German, both score their first NWSL goals for Chicago. And who else but Alyssa Nair wins her 50th game as keeper for Chicago? That's an NWSL record. Week over week, Reba, we're just talking about Alyssa doing something else even more amazing than the last time.
Man, must be really rough for her to be getting all this admiration and adoration. She probably hates it, but she deserves it because she's amazing.
She deserves it, and she probably hates it so much. The Reign are off to a tough start, similar to your Portland Thorns. They are now 0-2. How are you thinking about this, Becky? Like, I feel like you want to just write off, like, it's just the beginning of season, it's fine, it's really not that big of a deal. But I know that in this league, 6 points can end up being such a swing. So how are you dealing with having this record just like the Reign?
I think this is where I kind of am fortunate that I've been in the league for as long as I have, and I have the gift of experience where I have started seasons 0-2, 0-3, and then wind up winning the championship. And so, like, I know that the start of a season is not how you end the season. Of course, I would love to have points on the board. That would be great. And like you said, at the end of the season, some of these things are coming down to goal differential because you're tied on points because it's so tight. So of course I'd want points on the board, but have a good run, you know, like go in, like, let's say April and we're unbeaten, like you're right back in the top of that table. And so really it's just like, are you learning from your mistakes? Are you making progress? And then you'll start getting those wins, and like that'll just shake up the entire table.
Yeah, I think it goes right back to what you said at the beginning of this. Like, what did we learn and grow in from week 1 to week 2? And what can we learn and grow in from week 2 to week 3? And if you focus on the process in that way and less on the results and less on the table and the points, the wins will come and you'll get to September and you'll be closer to where you want to be. So I feel like you totally have the right attitude about that. Give us your attitude about the Red Stars fans. Who are those people?
The Red Star fans. I mean, if you think about also loyalty, I'm like, Chicago has been everywhere. Like, I don't even remember a lot of the places that we played when we played Chicago. Was there like a Benedictine in there? Like there was a...
Yeah, like a high school field. What are they, map club?
That's actually perfect.
Is that a
Geography
thing?
club? We just created it.
Cartography club.
There it is. There it is.
We'll get there eventually. If you give us the whole podcast, we will find the perfect club for every team's fan base. What's the Reigns fans?
I'm going to leave this one to you because I don't think anything that comes out of my mouth would be particularly nice.
I'm going to do a dad joke. The Reigns fans are meteorology club.
Da-don't. I mean,
good one.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
Okay.
I think they'll take that one too.
All right, last up this week in our NWSL coverage, we have Utah defeating the North Carolina Courage 2-1. Ashley Sanchez scores her first goal for North Carolina, which we have to mention because I called this last week. I know Ashley Sanchez is just primed to have a great season. It was a really great finish with great technique. I also want to shout out for Utah, Allie Sentnor, the number 1 overall draft pick. Becky, she's from my hometown, Hanson, Massachusetts. Did you know that?
No, but what is in the water there?
That's what everybody's asking. I really don't know.
Glory, that's what it is.
Glory. She scored an incredible game-winning goal for Utah. I don't know if you saw it, but it reminded me of like a Kristen Press-esque dribble at speed from midfield and then an amazing finish where you're kind of just like, what?
Yeah, who thinks to shoot from that part of the field? Like I was like, it was so Kristen Press, like right on with
Allie
that.
Sentnor and Kristen Press think to shoot from there.
I'm like, what like clicks in your brain that's like, now is the time to shoot? And it was so perfect. It was a great goal.
It was such a great goal. So I'm really, really happy for Allie Sentnor. Hanson, Mass, love her. I want to talk quickly, what on earth happened on that double PK for North Carolina? It all started in the 56th minute. Courage are pressing. They force a turnover from the Royals goalkeeper, Mandy Hott, and then Denise O'Sullivan gets taken down in the box and a penalty kick gets called. Malia Berkeley steps up for the Courage to take it. She scored from the spot in week 1, but she hits the left post. As the ball is ricocheting off, Ashley Sanchez and Addison Merrick from Utah are going for it. Sanchez gets fouled, and the Courage immediately have another PK.
Oh, trauma.
Unfortunately for the Courage, Malia Berkeley steps up again and goes the other direction. Not very Megan Rapinoe-esque of her. And Hott makes a clean save on this one. The whole thing happened inside like 3 minutes. And it was just like I kept being like, is this really what's happening right now? It was just a wild swing of events.
As someone who has taken PKs before, like you've been on the list for PKs, right, Sam?
Yeah. Against my sleep the night before, I've been on the list to take PKs.
If you had to take a second PK within, like what you said, 3 minutes and 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Would you want to step up and take it again? Or is this when you go, okay, who's the next person in line? I'm going to pass this ball off. Is it really just like you're either feeling it and you're not feeling it? And so you just kind of do like a gut check, like I'm going to do it again?
If I was playing, I would never admit this, but like I was so nervous about PKs. Like it literally made me lose sleep the night before. But I would have put on like the bravest face in any situation and been like, no, I'm as confident as it gets. I'm going to take it. Like I thought I had to act confident about PKs. So I always did. So if this had happened to me and I had hit the post, I believe I would have pulled a Megan Rapinoe, gone the exact same way, stepped up again and taken it again, even though like my heart would have been pounding and I would have been like hardly breathing. But I have to believe that that's what I would have wanted to try to do.
Well, good bravery.
But man, missing 2 in a row is tough.
Yeah, but I mean, PKs, those are, I mean, as someone who's never been on the list and probably never will be on the list, I understand the losing sleep because those are real pressure cookers right there. Like even looking at like
it's a mind game.
Heart rate data, like even in the practice PK shootouts that we have, my heart rate was like spiking up there in like the 170s.
I know. PKs are like very, very stressful. I'm convinced still that they took years off my life. North Carolina, unfortunate to lose. They had 17 shots with 3 on target, and Utah, 2 shots, 2 goals. Kind of
I mean, be efficient.
Is that the Amy Rodriguez effect?
I don't know. I like playing with A-Rod, like she would get a lot of attempts on goal. She also scored a lot too.
Yeah, she was a very, very dangerous forward, but that's her first win for Amy Rodriguez as the new head coach of the Utah Royals.
This really makes me happy because as like a peer, like a colleague, I love seeing somebody becoming a head coach of a professional team and finding success. And I know A-Rod, pretty well, pretty much since we were like 16, 17, we played on youth national teams together. And it's really cool to see her evolution from player to coach and to know that pathway is available to all of us because I do think we all are kind of like, we have PhDs in soccer. Like we should use that when our playing career is done. And however way, if it's podcasting, if it's head coaching, like I think it's just, I love that people are sticking around the game.
Yeah, that's a really cool way of putting that, Becky. You said we all have PhDs in soccer. And I think what's so interesting about that is that a lot of people would view what we do as like not helpful for our next career. But in so many ways, we're actually so primed to move on and do something else, whether it's, like you said, to get into coaching or to get into the media or to get into, honestly, anything that you need, like teamwork and dedication and effort. Like, I think our careers in so many ways are setting us up for whatever comes next. And I love the way that you put that.
Oh, thank you, Sam.
You're so welcome. We need to assign Utah and North Carolina Courage their high school clubs. I have an idea for Utah.
Oh, go for it.
Improv club.
Improv
club.
Why?
What are these people going to do next? I have no idea. They're winning. They're doing great. I'm very excited about it. Yes, and.
Okay. And then what about Courage since you've played there for several years?
History club. History club, baby.
Wow.
Check the history books. North Carolina. Always going to be in there. You know what I mean?
Oh, God. That's vomit-inducing a little bit. Okay.
I know. Do you hate the Courage like the same way that I like kind of am like I could never cheer for the Thorns?
I don't have that animosity towards the Courage as much because like when we lost to you guys, like you guys were good. The few games where I lost a match and I was like, we were just outplayed. And so I can't hate you guys for being good, you know?
Okay, yes. Other big league news. There were 5 home opener attendance records set this weekend. I just wanted to touch very briefly, Becky, like I feel like globally, here I am in England, and now I think I have a global perspective on everything, but the attendance for women's soccer games has been through the roof. It is so amazing to see it. What was the atmosphere like in front of your 19,000 fans this weekend?
It was electric. Like an amazing tifo that was Dune inspired, which, I love my sci-fi. So to see that, I was like, yes, this is amazing. Just the entire game, the Riveters, like just the chants, like it was really, really cool. And I think I will never take that for granted because we've been playing soccer, professional soccer for a really long time. To see how far we've come in every aspect of the game, but especially like when you think about supporters clubs and attendance and things, like it is vastly different. And it's just like, I am just so proud of this like community that is building and just growing so much.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to like weigh in on my experience here in England. Like I said in the intro, the Manchester Derby this weekend had over 40,000 fans at the Etihad. It was amazing. Bunny Shaw scored her 68th goal for Man City in just 82 games. So she set the goal scoring record just this weekend. So City, with their win this weekend, are on 43 points. Chelsea beat West Ham 2-0. They're also on 43 points. But this is going to bring us back now to our VAR conversation. A West Ham equalizer in the first half was wrongly called offside. Rico Wakey scored and was called offside in the 14th minute, and super clear on review that it was onside.
What a goal.
This is what I want to talk about, Becky.
Yeah, I mean,
did you see it?
Yeah, I was watching because it was the morning of my Gotham game, so I like want to check out what other games are being played. So that was on, and also what an amazing player. Like I was like, this player is a baller. Like great goal, and so clearly onside. And I was like, that's heartbreaking because you have this team like fighting for points against Chelsea, who's like fighting for the title, and that's like a season-changing decision.
Yes, totally agree. So we have VAR in the NWSL. They do not have it in the WSL. I feel like I keep switching back and forth between calling it VAR and calling it VAR. Can you rule in here, Becky, and tell me what to call it from here on out?
Oh, I don't care, but why don't I just go with VAR?
VAR. We're going to call it VAR. There have been so many comments on the WSL not having VAR, including Chelsea manager and future U.S. Women's National Team boss Emma Hayes, who was supportive, obviously, of VAR coming to the league and called the lack of it embarrassing earlier in the season when Chelsea had a clear goal called off, very similar to what just happened with West Ham against Chelsea, benefiting Chelsea this weekend. And there were two other big missed calls in WSL games this weekend, one in the Manchester Derby, one in Arsenal-Aston Villa game. Becky, without VAR, does it all even out? Or at this point in women's football, is it important that these precise decisions are called the right way?
I think it's the latter. I think when it gets to these fine margins, you need somebody making the right decisions in those moments. And I don't necessarily agree that it all kind of evens out. I think you can kind of say that to make you feel a little bit better, but I do think that unconscious bias and those kind of things do play into some of these big calls in big games.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree. Just to make that clear that I think it's something Dawn Scott, actually, our U.S. Women's National Team sports science director, would always say. It's this aggregation of marginal gains, and she meant it from like a physical fitness perspective. When teams are this elite, there's this much parity in leagues, games are so close. I think that VAR matters even more because one call that results in one goal being called off that wasn't could affect 3 points, could affect the outcome of the whole league, the whole game. Like, as the game grows and these decisions get more and more precise, it's even more important to have VAR. So I think it's such a miss that the WSL doesn't have it yet. You experienced VAR working against you this weekend, but does it give you solace to know that it's the right call, even when it works against you?
I do, especially if it's offsides, because that's very like black or white, very clear either way. You're either onside or you're offsides. I do think there's still human decision-making.
Subjective.
Yeah, with how you use VAR. VAR. Dang it. So I think, and that's also what's like kind of beautiful about our game is there is still that subjectivity, even when you have VAR. So yeah, I just think like, as this game is growing, like I do think that the WSL would benefit from having it.
I've heard that they don't have it because not all the stadiums are like equipped for it. The women sometimes don't play in the club's first or men's stadium. They'll play in like a smaller or secondary stadium, which I also feel like they're proving they deserve to be in these big stadiums. I saw this stat recently that Arsenal's women's attendance had averaged out to be higher than half of the Premier League attendance.
Ooh.
And so my answer to the stadiums not being equipped to have VAR technology is, well, then change the stadiums. Like,
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Or equip the stadiums that they're in. But like, I would much prefer for them just to move into like the larger stadiums.
I know. I totally agree. We're definitely on the same page about this. To wrap up all things England, all things British for this week, Arsenal are taking on Chelsea in the League Cup final, which is also called the Conti Cup. That's at 10 a.m. this Sunday, March 31st. A few fun things to watch for Becky. Kat Macario versus Emily Fox. Kat Macario plays for Chelsea, Emily Fox for Arsenal, two U.S. women's national team stars. This is Emma Hayes, the Chelsea manager's third to last silverware opportunity with Chelsea. She'll play this weekend for Conti Cup and then potentially for the league title and then even also potentially for Champions League, which won't end until May. This is also Arsenal's last shot at some sort of moral victory this season, barring a catastrophe from Chelsea and City. Arsenal won't get any more opportunities to go for a title themselves. So it's a big game this Sunday.
All right. Are you tuning in?
I am going to do the time difference because I am planning on going to Christie's West Ham game. They are playing Brighton, and I'm really excited about that. So I might not be able to watch this one. I might be cheering for the Hammers.
I mean, I completely understand. I mean, you have to go with family there.
Gotta go with family. This Conti Cup game should be available on FA Player in the US, but check our social medias for our weekly game day graphic for confirmation on that. And then finally, Becky, El Clasico Femenino was this past weekend. Barcelona beat Real Madrid 3-0 with some really lovely goals, including a really nice finish from Caroline Graham Hanson, who is playing incredibly well right now. Barcelona's football is just beautiful to watch, and this team seems poised to rack up some trophies this spring. They currently are sitting well in the clear at the top of the table of Liga F, clear by 12 points, and they are looking to continue their Champions League run this week. You can watch their second leg against Bran on DAZN Thursday at 1:45 p.m. Eastern. They're currently up 2-1 on aggregate, so the outcome could be tight, but a very exciting game for Barcelona coming up this week.
Barcelona, they know how to play soccer, don't they?
They sure do. You heard it here first. Let's look ahead at the Olympics for a second. We got the news in on the group stage draw last week. So I'm going to read off some teams really quick. Bear with me. The USA are in Olympics Group B with Germany, Australia, and either Zambia or Morocco. Group A is France, Colombia, Canada, and New Zealand. And Group C is Spain, Japan, Brazil, and either Nigeria or South Africa. Is this just 3 groups of death, Becky?
Absolutely. I mean, it is insane that this tournament is the way that it is with 3 groups of 4, with just like the best of the best in each group. It's crazy. Like you're like, thank goodness that a couple third place teams in each of these brackets gets to go through.
I don't, even when I played in the Olympics, like I don't even recall this level of competition. Like is the Olympics always like this?
I mean, it's always, because it's smaller, you're taking like the absolute best from each, I guess, is it confederation? Yeah. And so it's always tough. But I think because the game everywhere is growing and all the players are getting and all the teams are getting just so much better, like it just makes it that much more difficult.
Okay, so that brings us to the Olipop Gutcheck of the week, brought to you by our friends at Olipop. Becky, what is the toughest group for this 2024 Olympics?
I kind of have to go with Group C. I think the Spain, Japan, Brazil, and then Nigeria or South Africa. Like these are all teams that we know really well. We know how good they are. The fact that they're in one group together, like honestly, I have no idea who would make it out of that group.
I know. I feel like I have to agree with you. I'm looking at Group C and I'm like, how? But then I can't help but think about our group with Germany and Australia, either Zambia or Morocco. And I'm also kind of like France, Colombia, Canada, New Zealand. Like all these teams have been performing so well in world tournaments that they've been in. This tournament it's going to be Chaos Olympics.
Oh, yeah, probably. I mean, it's always wild, I think, because the cadence of the Olympics is wild because you're playing every third game, but then you're playing like the best of the best every third game with like no real like let-offs. It is, I think of all the tournaments that I've played in, I will always say that the Olympics is the most taxing.
Yeah, I mean, I only played in one. It was very taxing. I did just want to note that the reason why we keep saying either or for some of those African teams are because the CAF qualifiers will decide the final 2 spots for Zambia and Morocco and then Nigeria and South Africa. Both of those qualifying games will be 2-leg matches on April 5th and 9th. So that's coming up really soon. We'll know exactly who the rest of the teams are for the tournament.
That in itself is a little wild that you have an away and a home for both of those. Like, talk about like some high intensity, high pressure games.
I know. Incredible. And the 2 legs, that's going to be crazy. Hopefully we can watch some of those games. But that's our Olipop gut check of the week. Thanks again to our friends at Olipop. I couldn't get an Olipop here in England, but I have my Olipop sweatshirt on. Love you guys.
It's beautiful.
Okay. Obviously, the Olympics will be a huge challenge. It's only 3.5 months away. But let's go right into our inbox. And as a reminder, if you have a question for us, please email us at womensgamemib@menandblazers.com or call us at 855-611-4050. Becky, I'm going to quiz you on that phone number later. This week, we got an email from Christy Cook that asks, my question is, how do you feel about the new USL Super League starting this year? I haven't heard anyone really say how they feel this will impact NWSL, if at all, and if this is a good thing in the long run. I think this is such an incredible question, Christy Cook. Thank you for sending it in. Becky, do you want to weigh in first here?
Yeah, so I do want to preface and say, like, I don't know all the ins and outs of the Super League, but I will say that the idea of having more women playing soccer, more people around the sport, reffing, coaching in the front offices, I think that is a net positive, that you're just getting more people experience with the game. I think that's only going to be good for the growth of the game. So I'm excited about that. I do think because they're on a different calendar than the NWSL, I think because they'll have that winter break. So it's more based off like the European calendar. I'm just wondering about weather. Like, have you played in the Midwest in late January? Like, it is not pleasant. So I think there could be some potential problems there.
Yeah, I know, Becky. That's a really good point. I also think, and I touched on this in an episode of Friendlies, I feel a little bit protective of the NWSL. I think that we have come so far with this league and we have seen it grow and we're really just seeing it flourish in the last couple of years. And so I feel a little bit nervous about the introduction of another league that is quote unquote a competitor league with the NWSL. I know the seasons are different. I know that the markets are different, but I just kind of can't help but wonder about if we'll have to be sharing resources, whether that's talent for players or ownership interest or sponsorship dollars. I really just want to make sure the NWSL has all the resources that it needs to continue flourishing. But to your point, I do think that competition and like having multiple kind of things in the market breeds that kind of need to grow and get better. And so my hope is that the USL will also push the NWSL to become the best league that it can be. And I think that, like you said, more people following women's soccer, more people involved in the game, more players with opportunities to play at this really high level can be a good thing. I think my emotion is just that I feel a little bit protective of the NWSL. Do you get that?
I do get that. I totally get that. I also agree with what you said about the competition, because I think in order to like reach new levels, you have to not be comfortable. And if that means it's that this new league coming in and you get pushed out of that comfort zone, like I think that's also good for the NWSL. But I understand being protective of it. I think as someone who played in the WPS and have been, you know, in leagues that have folded and how like terrible that is, like for sure you want to keep seeing the NWSL doing as well as it has been doing.
I think it's a nuanced question and it's a nuanced answer. And I just actually wanted to like shout out. That's why I love doing these like long form pieces of media so much, like this podcast, Becky, is because this question requires a conversation. There isn't a clear black and white answer. And the fact that we can discuss this and recognize that there are pros and cons to all of it, I think is so important for us to come to conclusions and for us to be sharing those conclusions. It's important that people understand that our answers are nuanced. Do you know what I mean?
Very much so. Very much so. That's why I'm so glad that we have this podcast to do that.
And this friendship.
Yes.
I know. Can you believe this is the end of the episode? I'm so sad. But because this is good vibes, what good vibes do you want to leave our amazing listeners with? And also, I think we need to give Good Vibes listeners their own high school club.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna first go with the good vibes and say that having played in the match against Gotham, and Sam, as a player, I'm sure you've experienced this before, where like you, like for a defender, sometimes you just clear the shit out of the ball. You're just like, I'm just worried about getting this away from my own goal. And sometimes it just lands on the foot of your player and it looks like the most amazing pass. And really, you weren't even trying to do that. So my good vibes I'm pushing out is the unintentional brilliance. And I'm just hoping that whatever you do, I hope you have some unintentional brilliance to your day.
Yes, take credit for it. That's what I always say. Don't come on a podcast and tell everybody that you didn't mean to do it. You should take credit for your unintentional brilliance. My good vibe, I have been traveling. I'm in Manchester. I've been going to coffee shops and going out to dinner. And I'm so grateful and so fortunate that I have been able to come on this trip. But I just wanted to throw out a good vibe. There is so much cool stuff in the world. Any chance you get to travel, highly recommend. It has been so much fun being here in Manchester, experiencing a different city, a different culture of people. I've just loved it so much. I've had the absolute best trip. Who are our listeners? I don't know if we know them well enough yet. Who are these people?
Either. Well, okay,
Who are you?
I would also love to hear from our listeners what kind of club they think they are. But so when I was in high school, we had this group called the Blue Crew, and it was just this group of supporters that would literally go to any sporting event, or just not even sporting event, just any event that the school was putting on. And they were just like, you knew that they were going to be there supporting whatever was happening. And so I kind of want them to be the Blue Crew. I don't know what universally that is for other high schools, or even if it exists at other high schools.
Yeah, I don't really know either. You know what it kind of reminds me of is like, you know, like at my high school, we had like a Mr. and Mrs. Whitman Hanson, and it was just like the people that were like, go Whitman Hanson, like we are the school, like we love the school.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing. So the name is a workshop, but our listeners, you guys are just the best. You're so supportive. You're always there. You're the good vibe Sallies.
We love you. Thank you so much for listening to us.
Okay, that is it for this week's episode of Good Vibes FC. Are you subscribed yet? If not, subscribe right now, you smarty pants. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts, and it's on YouTube, and we're on Instagram. We're all over the place. Search for us at Women's Game MIB. This week on this podcast feed, Friendlies features an interview with Trinity Rodman. We talk about the Spirit's owner, Michelle Kang, and how much of a boss she is with her sunglasses on. We talk about Trinity's upcoming opportunity to be coached by both Emma Hayes and Jonathan Heraldez. We talked a little bit about how these young players today have even more responsibility than ever, and Trinity reveals her favorite flavor of chewing gum. What is she chewing out there on the field? It always mystifies me. So don't miss that episode with Trinity Rodman coming out on Thursday morning. And that's it for this episode of Good Vibes.
I'm Becky.
And I'm Sam Ewis, and this is Good Vibes FC, the podcast that's like the Glee Club, because Glee means happy, and this is freaking Good Vibes. Okay, love you guys. I'll text you in 5 minutes.